Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is a new week here on the Betting Weekly Dojo and one of the biggest weeks of the racing, horse racing calendar over here in the UK. And I'm surprised we've managed to get half an hour spare from Professional Gambler and my co-host here on the Betting Weekly Dojo. It is Neil Channing. It is Cheltenham week, Neil. I'm surprised you haven't got papers around you, looking through videos and getting excited about the horse racing action we're going to have over the next week or so.
I mean, you're right. It's amazing. I don't have basically today's the last day that I get to have any time to myself. The next 4 days, literally, I have my day planned out in little 20-minute segments. I know exactly what I'll be doing. For people in America who are watching this who think, what the hell is Cheltenham? What are they talking about? Why are they going on about horse racing? The Cheltenham Festival is a 4-day horse race meet. And I know in America, you generally have flat oval tracks that run left way round, anti-clockwise, and on the flat. Over here, we have jumps racing as well. They go over hurdles and fences, and it's very popular. Cheltenham is a small town. I don't know, it's probably a couple of 100 miles west of London, in the Cotswolds, a nice area of the country. And it's a spa town of about 10,000 people. And every year for many years, about 60,000 people turn up each day to watch horse racing there. The track itself is like an amphitheatre. It's the stand is on the top of a hill, and you overlook the valley, and the horses run below, and then they run up the hill at the end. And because they finish up a hill, it sometimes causes dramatic changes in fortunes in the last furlong of the race. The Irish horses come over every year. There's a pilgrimage from Ireland. Hundreds of horses come over from Ireland to race against the best horses from England and Scotland and Wales. And this year we've got some French horses coming over as well. So it's a little bit of a sort of pan-European thing. And it's just a great betting event. It's one of the biggest betting things of the year in the UK. I mean, obviously, in the same way as in the States, gridiron NFL dominates betting. Over here, soccer dominates betting for sure. But horse racing is the second biggest sport. Soccer accounts for roughly 50% of all bets in the UK. Horse racing about 30%. And then all the other sports added together come to about 20%. So it's a massive sport over here, although it's getting probably slightly smaller each year, and it's quite male dominated and an aging demographic of people that follow horse racing. But lots of people that don't really follow horse racing all the time make an effort for the Cheltenham Festival in the same way as you might if you're in America for something like the Kentucky Derby. You might not be a big horse racing fan, but you make an effort to watch that. Lots of people take a week's holiday for the year and go to the track. And this year, there's been a big thing, well, the last few years, a big thing of people taking a week's holiday to go to Benidorm. We were talking about that last week, go to Benidorm to watch the racing. So, you know, it's a massive thing. There's 2 TV channels dedicated to horse racing in the UK, and they're just wall to wall talking about Cheltenham. There's a preview circuit. People go to live events where maybe 100 people turn up, and they have a panel of experts, media people, ex-jockeys, current jockeys, trainers, and those people give their opinions on the races, and people scribble down what they've been saying. It's a whole kind of culture of its own, Cheltenham. I don't know, you're not a big horse racing man, are you, Nigel? Though obviously you love gambling and you've been involved in gambling for many years. How does Cheltenham feel to you compared to someone like me that lives and breathes horse racing every day?
Well, I mean, I've been very fortunate to go many times in my capacity of doing what I do for a living. I was a PR manager for bookmakers, and we took clients there many times. We've had boxes there. And from a social aspect, it's the one thing on the calendar year, as I was a younger man, that I always wanted to go. I always wanted to go to Cheltenham. First day of Cheltenham, hear that Cheltenham roar, you wanted to be there. As I've got older and older and older, and I'm getting more grumpier, I couldn't think of anything worse than going to Cheltenham. But when I was a younger lad, when I was in my 20s and 30s, when I was a lot fitter and obviously loved it, I was there for the whole duration. I stayed in Airbnbs, stayed in hotels, and it was one on the calendar I wouldn't want to miss. But it does come with a consequence where you just get 60,000 drunken guys absolutely all over the place. And unless you're doing it corporate, I wouldn't think of queuing for your wages and stuff like that. As
Well,
I got
that's the
older, I
other
don't want to
thing.
go.
When you're talking about staying over there, now they're having a lot of the places locally to Cheltenham, they offer like a breakfast thing where you can go and have a preview of the races and a bacon sandwich or a fry up, and people start drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning going to those things. And then they're on the track. I think the track opens its doors at 11, even though the first race is not until 20 past 1. And then racing carries on until around about 5:30, I think is the last race. And then people pile into the town, and there are nightclubs and lots of restaurants and lots of bars and plenty of drinking. The hotels there's always kind of poker games breaking out, and
Irish
lots
groups,
of
singers, dancers, DJs,
singers and dancers, singing and dancing. Definitely, there's plenty of that. Some people don't stay in Cheltenham; they might stay nearby in Worcester or Oxford or somewhere like that. The traffic to get in and out is just horrendous, and of course, when you're there, it is quite crowded. I think they'd say the crowd's going to be a bit down this year, but people are really. It's quite hard to go and see the horses in the paddock and then go to the bookies and have a bet, and then get to the stand to get a good position to see the race. Because with half an hour between races to do all of those things, especially if you need to go to the loo or get something to eat, you haven't really got time to do all that just between two races.
There's a couple of stories I always remember for Cheltenham. I mean, the first one is that the train station is miles away from the main town. So when you come out of the train station to walk it, it's like an hour walk. Do you think it's a bad idea when you go in there? On the way back, you don't want to do that. You get the buses that take you up to the track. But we had a minibus from London once, and we turned up in a minibus, and we got down this country lane, and it was about 2 miles outside of Cheltenham, and the traffic getting in there was horrendous. So we all decided to get off because there was a pub, and we just all went in the pub, and everybody had the same idea. The pub was just rammed full of people just going to go out and walk. But there was one year I went, I think I had to come back to London for something. So I went on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, stayed the night in Airbnb. Wednesday, I went into, we missed the train, and the train going back was about every half hour, so we'd have a Guinness before we got back. Anyway, we went into this bar, and it was like 11:30 in the afternoon, and the band was playing. The guy was called Blackjack Davy. He was an Irish folk singer. He was telling jokes and singing. The atmosphere was incredible. Anyway, we stayed. We had another one. Then everybody went to the races. We thought, we'll stay here. We won't bother going to the races. Anyway, we then decided that, we've got a bet in the first. We might as well watch our bet rather than go back. Well, we stayed in the bar all day. We then had to go and find somewhere to stay. I stayed in there for 24 hours, this bar. And I remember the next day thinking, I was chatting to that Blackjack Davy. What was I chatting to this Blackjack Davy? And this was like an Irish sort of folk singer. My mother's Irish. My dad's very English and very sort of like, he's very like, this guy was, so I remember thinking, what did I say to you? That terrible moment that you think I've said something. I might have got away with it. About 3 days when I got back to London, I realised I left my jacket in the bar. So I rang the people up and said, I've left my jacket. He said, no, the guy from Blackjack Davies took your jacket. And he said he was seeing you. And I thought, what have I said? So he said, I've got the number. I said, hi, I think you've got my jacket. He said, yeah, we have. He said, we're going to bring it down when we're doing your mum's birthday party.
Oh, my.
I booked him for my mum's birthday party. And he was holding my jacket hostage. And I knew straight away my dad would not want this guy in his house singing his Irish folk songs. So I managed to get out of it and gave him a gig at a job I was doing at the time. I said, you do this gig instead. My mum doesn't want it now. So I had to pay for this guy to come down to bring my jacket to do a concert and a thing. But that is how messy Cheltenham can be, ladies and gentlemen.
It could easily get messy. You reminded me, though, with the whole thing of like people going there to stay and stuff. So I've got a friend who he's doing quite well on the horses, and he has a team of guys working for him to get his bets down. So these guys generally are marauding around betting shops in the UK. We have small retail shops. There used to be 10,000 of them in the country. They're down to about 3,500 now. But most towns will have a betting shop, and you can just wander in and get your bets on. And there are quite a few shops in Cheltenham. And during the week of the festival, they compete for special offers. Now, a lot of the books will have special offers in all of their shops around the country, but they might have extra promotions available if you go into the ones that are actually in Cheltenham. So this guy had a team of about 12 people who used to generally run around London putting bets on for him. But Cheltenham week would come round and he would book them all into a hotel in Cheltenham and tell them, right, you've got to go to the one particular bookies in the centre of Cheltenham because they'll be having some promotional offers. And basically it was price boosts. It was lost leaders. You know, the horses, I don't know, maybe plus 250 and they're offering plus 500. And anybody can have one bet. You're allowed one bet on it, each person. And the maximum bet, I think, was £100. And then they'd have a whole bunch of these during the morning. And you know, you could look and say, okay, well, this one's plus 300 and they're offering plus 600, but it's £100 maximum. And he had, I think he had 17 people. And at the beginning of the week, he would go in and he would say to the manager of the shop, here you go, here's 500 quid for you because my boys are here. This is all my team. Learn their faces. Have a good look at them now. When they come up to the counter, they're going to be writing out 6 slips each of £100 for each of these horses, and they're going to do slightly different handwriting on each one, and you're going to let them come to the front of the queue. All the other customers are going to move out of the way to make sure they get on, because there was only like a sort of 20-minute window for putting these bets on, and you're going to let them have pretty much whatever they want. And he basically, that particular year, the price boosted ones just had an incredible, the Gold Cup is the big race of the year, and the horse was boosted. I think it was boosted from plus 225 to plus 400. And he ended up having just untold amounts on it, and the horse won. And they couldn't pay. The shop just ran out of money. All the other local shops were sending money over to them, getting a bike to bike it over and stuff like that. And they didn't have enough to pay him out. He's all of his boys are barred from that shop now, unfortunately. Surprise. They would never even set foot on the track. They go and stay in a hotel and you spent the whole day in the bar. They spent the whole day in that shop, basically.
It was the bar dead opposite the train station. I think it was called the Railway. It's ironically called the Railway. Dead opposite the train station. There's a bar there, and a big bookmaker sponsor it, and used to give you scarves when you come out. And I don't think we didn't get out of there one day, but it's a great time. But as I've got older, my party days are long gone, so I don't really enjoy it so much. One thing I would say this year, though, the Cheltenham Festival, it's a big festival for the British horse racing industry, isn't it, as well? I mean, this is a sport that's been battered, and the betting we've spoken about on this show before. The Americans will watch this show. Well, probably some of them will wear, but we have restrictions now, gambling restrictions in terms of what we can bet. We have to show evidence of funds to be able to bet what we have. And this is a big time of the year for the sport, because the sport, as you said, it's diminishing in terms of its demographic. The people are getting older and older. The youngsters coming in. So it's not only a big week for betting purposes, it's also a big week for sport, and a huge week for the British betting order, the companies and the bookmakers and anyone associated with betting over here in the UK.
Yeah, horse racing in the UK is funded by a levy. So every time you have a bet on horse racing, a little part of that bet goes to horse racing. You have to lose. It has to be a losing bet for that, obviously, to happen. It's not on the stakes. It's done on how much you lose. But they get a little slice of your losses. And so obviously if all the favourites win and the punters all have a great week, then horse racing doesn't really get so much levy. Whereas if lots of outsiders win at Cheltenham, the biggest turnover week of the year, then that's a hell of a lot of money going into the sport. Also, the track at Cheltenham is owned by Jockey Club Racecourses, and they don't take a profit. So that obviously they make money on the week. But Jockey Club Racecourses put all their profits back into the running of racing. So, in terms of prize money or building up the facilities or race sponsorship, welfare of horses, all kinds of things they spend their money on, but they're not siphoning off money to shareholders. So it's very important that the course has a good week. And obviously people talk about, everyone always moans about ticket pricing and the cost of a pint of beer at the festival and that kind of thing. But you've got to remember that all of that money is going back into the good of racing. So, I kind of think that people complain a lot about the cost of Cheltenham. And, we talked last week about people going off to Spain to watch it. The costs that are directly going to the course are all going for the good of racing. For me, the real problem is that, the train fare to get to Cheltenham is 2.5 times tomorrow what it was last Tuesday. And the hotel rooms, even for a kind of moderate hotel, you can easily spend kind of $800 for the night. That might be for a sort of low grade-ish hotel. So, definitely some people are kind of exploiting the situation. And that's costing the punters. But I think the cost of the ticket and the cost of a pint of beer and that kind of thing, those things, your money's going back into racing. And it is a big thing for racing. It's also really big for the betting industry. As you said, I mean, generally, historically speaking, in the same way that in America, going into the NFL season, lots of bookies will have lost leaders and try and sign up bonuses and that kind of thing to get new customers to sign up in the hope that they'll stay with them for the whole season. This is what happens with Cheltenham a lot. So bookmakers realise that it's a time when people are Googling and looking to see where they can get down, and they're Googling keywords like Cheltenham and Cheltenham races and Cheltenham Festival. And bookies are trying to pitch to those people to say, open an account with us and hopefully you'll bet with us for the whole week, and maybe we'll keep you for some football or some other kind of action later in the year. Obviously now, like you said, we've got all the problem of people having to go through affordability checks and provide details and information on their personal finances to get an account. And also bookmakers saying, well, racing's quite an expensive product. There's media rights money, there's levy, and there's tax. And unless a customer is, definitely going to lose money, they're not particularly interested in attracting horse racing punters. The flip side of that is horse racing punters visit the sites more regularly. They're generally more loyal, they're older, and they bet slightly bigger because they've got money. So there's two sides of that coin. But I do think in past years, the lost leaders going into Cheltenham, a lot of the bookmakers would offer, instead of just having win and show where, it's 3 places, or win and place, where it might be 2 places, bookmakers might offer in a big race with maybe 28 runners, some of these races, they might offer 6 places or even 7 places to try and attract the punters. And you essentially just get these kind of bonus places where you still get paid out even if your horse finished 6th. There's less and less of that now, because I don't think the books over here are so much crying out to sign up horse race punters. They'd probably rather have people betting on soccer that maybe bet smaller stakes, more parlays, more same game parlays, that kind of thing, where they have a higher hold on the money. The percentage that they make is a bit higher. So I don't know. That's a trend we've seen, and I think that's a trend going into this year. There's going to be a lot less of the kind of people offering even money about a horse that should be minus 130 or something like that, just to try and get sign-ups. I don't think that's going to happen as much this year.
I think the old one was always, if you're one come second to the favourite in the first race, the idea is to basically get the bookmaker wants everybody to get the money on the first race, doesn't they?
Yeah. You're right.
Everyone have the money on race one. You'll get a load of offers on the first race.
They have crazy offers. Like if you have a bet on the first race and it loses, we just give you it back as a free bet.
Give you a free bet. Now I think that is the best marketing strategy at all if I was a bookmaker, because that way you've got them. And also it's a really, really important week as well in the calendar, because Cheltenham always falls on a real busy soccer period as well. You've got the Champions League last 16 matches, second legs, which are huge on the Tuesday and the Wednesday night. Your Europa League, and all the British sides are all in it. Rangers are doing well.
And you're exactly right.
Massive matches.
If I'm a bookie in the UK and I can sign someone up for Cheltenham and they have a good winning day, there's a good chance that I'm going to get their action on the Champions League in the evening on Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge factor
thing
for the firms.
And the other thing as well this week is, well, you got the golf starts hotting up as well. We've got the Players' Championship as well, so it's like a really, really, really big day, a big week for sports betting, including the horses as well.
Apart from Cheltenham, there's only really one or two other horse meetings in the UK that really matter at all. The second big meeting that matters is Royal Ascot on the flat in June. But then there's this one standalone race. It's not a standalone race because it's part of a 3-day meet. But the Grand National is kind of one of the big betting events of the year. So if you think in Australia, they have the Melbourne Cup, and in America, they have the Kentucky Derby. Those are kind of the worldwide races that in those countries, they have the potential to kind of stop the nation. I think with the Kentucky Derby is a little bit like the Grand National now. It doesn't really. People are not taking days off work to go to the Kentucky Derby in the way that they might have done 20 years ago. There's not so much in the way of kind of office pools and that kind of thing. In Australia, the Melbourne Cup is still a race. You know, it's the race that stops the nation. It's literally on kind of ordinary news, not just on the sports channels. Whereas over here in the UK, the Grand National, yeah, it might get like a minute's worth of coverage on the news in the evening, but it's not really such a big story. It used to be that if you worked in an office, that for sure they'd have some kind of pool and you'd all pick a horse and whatever. That kind of thing doesn't really happen anymore. The nature of work.
I think the difference with the Grand National compared to Cheltenham is the Grand National's on a Saturday. I think that makes a massive difference. Everybody's off, so everyone goes down the betting shop. I can guarantee you now, I mean, the biggest betting event will be the Cheltenham Festival, without a shadow of doubt, but for pure professional bettors. But you go down to the local betting shop, it won't be anywhere near as busy what it is Grand National Day, because it's Saturday. Uncle Joe wants a bet, your nan wants a bet, your auntie wants a bet, and they all have a bet on the Grand National because it's the weekend they're off. If they had that on a Wednesday or Thursday, I don't think they will have the same.
There's 28 races at Cheltenham. The top turnover race will be the Gold Cup on Friday. That comes in the top 3 bet horse races of the year. The Grand National's number 1, but the top 20 bet horse races of the year, 17 of them will be at the Cheltenham Festival this week. So although they don't individually have the biggest betting race of the year, it's just big betting race after big betting race after big betting.
But the average stake would be a lot bigger on the Cheltenham matches than the races of the Cheltenham Gold Cup. So if you looked at number of slips, you said slippage, Grand National would outweigh them by masses. But
that's the other thing. You know, talking about how important it is for the industry and for bookmakers in the UK. You know, tomorrow the meeting starts and we start off with an even money favourite. We're followed then by a favourite that's going to be about minus $1.30. The 4th race, we've got another favourite that's about minus $1.30. And the 5th race, we've got another favourite, the biggest race of the day, the Champion Hurdle. And that one's about minus $1.30. So we've basically got a load of horses that, you know, people are going to want to roll up in parlays. And if they all win, this is a disaster day for the bookmakers. You know, obviously there's a good chance they don't all win. And I think to get those 4 to win it, I haven't calculated at those prices I just said, but it's something like plus 350. So, you know, it's most likely that they won't all win. But, you know, there's still it's going to be the most popular parlay of the day.
Yeah, I'm looking. I know. You said to me, "Am I looking forward to Cheltenham?" But now you just told me there's a -1. I haven't even looked at the card. -110, -120. The betting emporium emails from Neil Channing tomorrow with the lovely amount of Schneidy each ways that will be coming through, and those will be quite interesting to see. So yes, I think now I've suddenly perked up my interest slightly more. I mean, that's the clever bet. A couple of each way doubles rather than the hot pot to win it if you can get them extended places. Before we just the reason why we talk about Cheltenham, it's such a big week here, and obviously a lot of people in America watching this show don't really understand how your reviews in particular. Me, I'm just looking forward to. A winner doesn't matter whether me if it's at Cheltenham or something like that, or any racetrack really. Your week now is crazy. So we started last week. Last Saturday, you had the Betting Emporium preview night. So that was the big night of the year where you had a lot of your clients there. You ran through the cards. You had tips. Yeah,
we had a kind of a 4-course dinner, and about 50 people turn up. and we have an expert on each table, and then we sort of take it in turns to stand up and have a bit of a discussion about the races. So that was great. That was a really good
Who
night.
was the expert on your table?
No, we can't have an expert on every table. Our table was very nice. We had a fun table. It was a great evening, actually. But yeah, we got out of there in the early hours of the morning, and I didn't get home till about 3 a.m. So that was quite hard work in that respect. But it was a fabulous evening and a really nice group of people. Anyway, then yesterday I think I spent basically I started working on Cheltenham. Lots of people start working on it before Christmas. I mean, the futures markets on all of these races, the meeting finishes on Friday. The futures markets are already up for next year's Cheltenham Festival. So you can already bet on one or two of the bigger races for next year before this year's even been run. Obviously, these are what we call in the UK anti-post markets. So same as in America with a futures market for something like, if I play on a future for the Breeders' Cup in America and the horse is scratched and doesn't run in the race, I lose my money. But the flip side of that is I might be able to get a really big price about something that the books haven't really cottoned on to. I don't really get involved in those long range futures markets. I have had some futures bets, but I only really started doing them in the last 10 days. Nothing that I've bet has kind of totally crashed in price. But I like to try and get on early when there's some uncertainty over the shape of the field or how many runners there's going to be. And, sometimes I find I get kind of 5 to 1 about something that goes out at maybe goes off at maybe 3 to 1. Those are the kind of ones I like. I'm not really trying to, lots of people are trying to bet things at 33 to 1 that'll crash to 8 to 1. They're much harder to find and you're much more likely to end up betting one that doesn't even run. I'm pretty confident that most of mine will now be running in the races. I won't have lost any of the money before we even start. So the amount of time I spent before 3 weeks ago was quite small, really. But the next thing I did, which I always do, and I've been doing more of in the last few years, is to look at trends and stats. So I spent a bit of time looking at different races during the week. For example, there's a race over 2 miles 5 with a hurdle race. Now this is quite an extended distance for hurdlers to run along. I looked at a couple of ideas about how that might affect which ones would win it. And one thing is the amount of rest that the horse has had since its last run. So I decided that if you'd had a lot of rest going into this quite, stamina burden, that would be better for you. So I'm just getting my piece of paper. So I went through and I thought, well, if a horse has had less than 28 days rest going into this race, how would it have done? I would imagine it would have done worse than you expected. And what happens if it's had more than 28 days rest? So you can go through and you can plug it into a computer database. I found out that in the Coral Cup, which is the third race on Wednesday, horses that had less than 28 days rest in the race this century, there had been 204 examples of horses running in the race where they'd had less than 28 days rest. 196 of those had lost, and only 8 had won the race. And if you'd have had a pound on each of those, you would have lost £119. So sorry, did I say 8 had won? I should have said 3 had won. Sorry, I don't know why I said 8. You would have ended up being on quite a big loser betting all of those. So obviously I'm not going to bet anything that's had less than 28 days rest in that race. I basically came up with hypotheses like that in maybe 12 of the races, and then went and studied them and looked and said, how many winners would you expect to have at the prices of the horses, given the market price of the qualifiers, and what was the actual number of winners that you had, and then you look at the actual over the expected, and if that number's less than 1, well, then that's a bad thing to go for. And if it's more than one, well, that's a good criteria to go for. And then when I'm looking at the races on the day, you've got 28 runners, I could just cross out, 8 or so in each race on my little stat thing that I worked out 3 weeks ago. So I've done that for 12 or 14 of the races. I mean, that took me hours really, and I got some help from somebody with it because I'm less technologically aware of as your average bloke. So yeah, that's the kind of prep I've been doing. I've done quite a lot of that. Obviously, watching races, I've spent hours watching races. Just to sit down and watch all of last year's 28 races is quite a good thing to do, because a lot of these horses run in the festival year after year. And if you go through and look at horses that finished 7th and 8th last year, you might not have taken much notice of them on the day, but they're pretty interesting with future, ideas. So I've spent quite a lot of time prepping like that. You've mentioned Betting Emporium. I have to write something for Betting Emporium every day. That's what we do for our customers. And I do write quite long bits about every race, and it takes me a while. So generally speaking, I'll set the alarm for 3 a.m. Each day during the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'll try and start writing by about 4. I normally spend the first hour when I get up, just getting a cup of tea and having a look through in case there's any overnight news, check the weather, see what the ground's like, check the markets to see if there's been any dramatic moves overnight while I was sleeping. And then, I'll probably sit down and start writing about 4. And we get the first lot of essays over to the customers at 9 a.m. each morning. But normally between about 8 and 9 a.m., I get loads of text messages from people, often people I never speak to for the rest of the year, who are saying, what do you fancy at Cheltenham today? That's pretty annoying. And then, I do sort of exchange a bit of information with a couple of other professional gamblers. I might have a chat with a couple of those guys, see what they're doing, see if they've had any thoughts. There's a couple of media people I speak to. They may plug me into something that I hadn't seen in the media. Sometimes, if there's a bit of news from the track, I speak to people that are on site, and they might have some what they consider to be useful inside information. I don't take too much notice of that kind of thing. I'm generally looking at form and trends, really. And I have criteria for narrowing down the races. I'm looking for the races where the place markets are good, and I'm looking to bet 3 or 4 in each race. And then really, I've pretty much got all the write-ups done by about 10 a.m. And I might make last-minute adjustments to some of them if there are non-runners, or if it's raining and the going changes. Those would be the main factors, and also the market. If the market changes dramatically, something that I was intending to bet, I might switch and not back it because it's, I thought it was going to be 8 to 1, and now it's only 4 to 1. That would be enough to put me off. So I'm looking at everything really, and then by the time it gets to about 10:30, 11, I'm getting my bets down. So I don't really get my bets down very early. Lots of people are getting their bets down the day before. The markets are definitely stronger on the day, and these markets on the Cheltenham races, they're about as strong as I'm going to see in horse racing the whole year. You can easily have 5 or 10,000 on a horse at Cheltenham without really causing anything of a ripple in the market. And in the bigger races, something like the Champion Hurdle, where the favourite is around about minus $1.30 at the moment, you could easily have 100 grand on that horse, or even 500 grand on it, without really making much of a shot in the market. I mean, I know somebody who had a Cheltenham Festival favourite a few years ago, and it was going off at around about 235, that kind of price, plus 235. This guy, sorry, I meant to say plus 135, not plus 235, plus 135. And this guy had hundreds of thousands on it, and several of his mates had hundreds of thousands on it in the last kind of 10 minutes before the race. And it hardly caused a ripple in the market. And I know, that they bet that kind of money between them. It's amazing, really. It is amazing when you look at the way, on a normal, like today's racing on a Monday, if you're trying to have more than 200 quid on something at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's moving the market. Tomorrow morning, you could be having 200,000 and it wouldn't make any difference. So it's incredible. I mean, it's a great opportunity for punters. And I just think there's no reason to not get involved, but there's also no excuses for not doing your homework and being really prepared.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive 3 days busy. I mean, the other thing you've got to remember as well, you're all excited. Everyone's excited for the start. It doesn't matter whether it's Cheltenham, doesn't matter if it's Wimbledon, whether it's the March Madness, whether it's the Super Bowl, whatever. Everybody's excited. They've all got a little bit of a pot to get going. You've got a favourite in the first race that's even money. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to go pop or after day one, after the first race, or are going to. So the strategy and the staking is the key, because when you're having so many bets like you do, when you send them through to me, and my first thing is, right, how much do I need to make sure I can get on every single bet? And sometimes you think, well, I'll go back and bet the later ones after race number 2 or race number 3. Mm. And in race number 2, race number 3, you may not get off to a winning start. And then you've got a conundrum. Do you think, well, do I top up the pot, or do I ignore that one? And 9 times out of 10, when you ignore one, that one either goes well, comes second or third, or wins. So staking it when you've got all these races or all these matches, I mean, March Madness, for example, all these 32 different matches going off all over the place at the same time, opinions on every single one, matches on every round, and the following day more stuff. Tennis at Wimbledon, 128 matches over 2 periods a day. It's the day where you think you're going to get the lot, but it's the day you've got to be really, really careful with your bank. Because I remember doing my bank on race 1 back at Cheltenham back in the day. There was a favourite. I'm no good at the races you do. I think it was a horse called. Did a horse? The first race, it's the Supremes, isn't it? The first race.
Yes, the Supreme. Yeah,
Supreme. Did a horse called Azertiot win it?
I think Azertiot did win it. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it was about odds on or something. Was it odds on favourite? It was a heavy. I laid that. Well, I took the bet. So I was there, and someone said, "Oh, there was some rumour going around it," and I laid it, and I got punchy and lost all my day's money in the opening race. That's hence the reason why I ended up in the Guinness tent and going to that bar to see Blackjack Davy. But that can happen at John. This is a sport.
I think
people get very, very excited and they do silly things, and that's the problem with.
Well, I think you talk about preparation. I think to an extent. One thing you can definitely do. I know with Betting Emporium we suggest bets in terms of points. So I'll say we're going to have 6 points each way on this horse, and 8 points each way on this horse, and 15 points to win on this horse. Now, generally speaking, and a point for some people might be $2, and for another person, a point might be $100. So if they're having 15 points to win, they're having $1,500. Obviously, one man's bankroll is different to another's, and I'm not funny about that. People should bet within their limits and what they're comfortable with. But I would say over the week, I'm probably going to, there's 28 races. I'm probably going to bet, each bet's going to be an average of about 15 points. And I'm probably going to have an average of 2 bets in each race. A lot of races, I'll bet 4 horses, win and place. And other races, I might just bet 1 horse to win. So some races are going to be more important than others. But roughly speaking, I think I'm going to lay out about 1,000 points over the 4 days. So you can divide up your bankroll by 1,000 and then see how much to make a point worth. But of course, that's going to mean that's assuming that every single horse is going to be unplaced, which is really unlikely if you're betting 3 or 4 in each race with 28 races. I don't think I've ever, my worst ever Cheltenham, I think I lost 300 points or something. So, it's pretty unlikely that's, I think you could probably look at it and say, well, I'll divide my bankroll by 300 and use that as a point. But I do think it's worth making those calculations before you start, because, of course, you could go really badly on the first 2 days and not have a winner, and then you put yourself out of the game. You've got no money to bet on Thursday, and suddenly Thursday's the day when you have 4 or 5 winners. So you don't want to leave yourself in that situation. I think it's always good to try and calculate where you're going to be. And also the other thing these days with accounts is, you're shopping around for prices. You need to have money. I'd probably bet. I'm betting through agents and stuff like that to get on. I have people helping me to put my bets on. But I mean, between the people that I'm using, we're probably betting with 5 or 6 different bookmakers. And I need to make sure, I've got money deposited ready, because it might be that I break even on the first day, but with one book, I'm totally wiped out because I bet all the losers with that book, and the winners I might bet with another book. So I need to spread my money around and make sure I've got money in different places. This is all part of the preparation, because in the heat of the battle, the races are coming up at 30-minute intervals. Having to deposit and messing about like that, especially when you're doing it through third parties, is a complete pain. So I that's a part of my preparation. The other thing is knowing whether you're going to. I think it's quite a good tip to say to people, you should write down exactly what you're going to do at the start of each day. So first race, I'm going to bet this, and I'm going to have this amount on. Sixth race, I'm going to bet these 2 horses, I'm going to have this amount on. And then it stops you, it's quite easy if you lose on the first 4 races to suddenly chicken out of the 5th one, especially if you were planning to bet something at 30-1 or 20-1. You might think, well, I'm having a bad day and these outsiders never seem to win. I'm just going to give up on that. I'm just going to bet a tiny amount on those. Of course, if that's the one that wins, and you've ended up having a third what you intended to have on it because you got too nervous, well, that could be the difference between you having a winning and losing week. The flip side is sometimes people get chasing, don't they? They start losing and then they chase their losses, and they might think, well, this favourite in the 4th race is minus $1.30. If I unload a chunk on it, I can win all my money back. Well, that's obviously, we've seen how that movie can finish sometimes, and it doesn't always work out well. So I would guard against that kind of thing, and I would say you need to be, try and stay level-headed the whole time. Try to be dispassionate about the results. The other thing that I think is really important is, these races are not individual events. There is some correlation between them. So if one stable starts off and has the first 3 winners, and another stable has 2 horses that are absolutely tailed off and run appallingly in the first couple of races, is that a sign that stable's horses are not running very well? Should that make you reduce your confidence in their selections later in the week? It's definitely true that the market will take that opinion, the ones that have been tailed off. If you look at the futures prices for their horses running on Friday, if they're finishing, out the back of the field on Tuesday, their futures prices will be drifting. Whereas the stable that has the first couple of winners, their futures prices will be coming in. Now you can keep on top of that. I remember doing that last year. There was a horse in one of the first races that you could see from halfway it was running no kind of race, and the stable had all kinds of issues in the run up to the meeting. Their horses were not running very well, and they had a big favourite going in the first race on Friday, and I immediately faded it while they were halfway round in the first race, and I think the price was plus 175. By the time they'd finished running the first race, it was out to plus 275. So you've got to be awake to all those things. But unless you've done the preparation and you've got that roadmap in your head of which races are coming where and what you're looking for, I think it's quite hard to be on top of those situations and aware. So I think the prep is key. And I think keeping a level head is key. I think staking is key. And I think, you want to make sure that you win enough on the winning days to make it worth all the work, but you don't put yourself out of the game on the losing days. You don't get carried away.
Do you know what my biggest worry is this year? I tell you what my biggest fear is from a bettor. I mean, I don't mind losing, or you've got to accept losing as part of winning as well, but I don't mind losing. I don't want to lose, but I don't mind losing. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to miss an opportunity of a bet. And I feel this Cheltenham, for me, or this Wimbledon or this sporting period for me now, with the outlets that I have available in the UK, with the way that the betting restrictions have happened. This time last year I would have probably had 4 different outlets that I could probably get on, ranging on a day. If I lost money in one bookmaker, I could deposit 400 or 500 in another bookmaker or whatever that particular day. Because I won't send in my stuff,
your documentation,
all of my documents, I refuse to send them in to these people. I don't think it's fair that I should have to send all that. I'm limited to one sportsbook that at the moment that I can currently get with, so it enables me to put in. I mean, with your bets, with Ben Emporium bets for the last 5 or 6 Cheltenhams, I've probably bet £10 a point. So if you give a 10 point bet, I've had £100 in it. Now, with what I've got available to deposit tomorrow, if I have a bad day, I'm wiped out, because I've got no outs. There is nowhere else for me to go, and I think that is the problem that a lot of people who will subscribe to your bets, to betting.
I think you're right.
A lot of people who are coming out to bet on Wimbledon or whatever. This is the problem you have now. So you've got to go underground. You've got to go to.
I think there's a lot of that. I mean, we talked about.
If we don't get off to a winning start tomorrow, Neil, legitimately, even though it's Cheltenham, I cannot.
Putting me under even more pressure now. I'm feeling stressed.
I have faith in you. But that's the problem you've got. So you can't.
No, you're right. You're definitely right. I mean,
you're one day you're out. So the rest.
I have a couple of accounts in my own name. One of them sent me a message the other day asking me to clarify what my occupation was. I went with company director. I thought that was suitably vague. I don't know why they were asking that, but it couldn't have been a good thing. Yeah, you're right. It's I have another account in my own name where I'm limited on what I'm allowed to deposit during a month because I refuse to send them documentation. Luckily, I've had some winnings in the last couple of weeks, and I've built up a little bit of money in there. But yeah, I mean, if I could easily get halfway through the week and not be able to deposit with them, and that just makes life harder and more annoying. That's not going to stop me from doing all my gambling on the week. And while I can see that's a good way to stop some problem gamblers from getting out of their debt, it's also a really annoying thing that 99% of the people that enjoy gambling who aren't problem gamblers are finding a total pain. And also, I think it's changing the way they bet. I think a lot of people now say, well, I might as well just do some small parlays because I can't really do, one-off singles, because if I want to have $100 on something, maybe I want to bet 130 on something at minus $1.30, and there's 4 of those tomorrow. And if I want to bet 130 on all 4 of them, that might take me over my deposit limit. Whereas if I just have a $10 parlay or maybe some kind of round robin bet or something like that, I can stake a lot less. But of course, the thing is that those bets are much higher margin for the bookmakers, are much less likely to win, and it's going to be good for the bookmakers' profits. So, this idea that the Gambling Commission think that this is saving problem gamblers for themselves, it's also hurting regular gamblers because it's kind of forcing them into play markets that are more profitable for bookmakers.
But the thing is, mentally,
that's a thing they're not thinking about.
Well, what mentally missing a winner is more frustrating to me than betting a loser.
Oh, I totally agree.
If you gave me 5 horses and all 5 lost, I'd be fairly disappointed. But I forgot about it in an hour. But if I missed a 25 to 1 winner because I wasn't able to get the wager down, that frustrates me more, and that will stay with me for weeks. So that's not good for your mental health and all this kind of stuff. So it's a difficult one. Anyway, whichever way you're going to play on Cheltenham, gamble responsibly. Whatever way you do in any sports, March Madness coming up, please gamble responsibly. The French Open tennis, a big tournament, strategies there of looking at how you should prepare for these big tournaments. You've got to do your homework. You've got to have your staking plan right. And you've got to gamble responsibly, effectively, in the end of the day. And hopefully, if you put those 3 together, you can have a profitable week. If you're not into horse racing, sorry about this show. If you're not really something the sport you follow, but there may be some tips along the way for your strategies going forward. But if you are into horse racing and you want to follow Neil's picks throughout the Cheltenham, you can do so by going to bettingemporium.com. That's Neil's website, and you can subscribe to his Cheltenham package there. and get his essays, as he says. They're very well written, very, very thorough. And I did last year. Was it last year? We had a brilliant, bad start, but ended up flying.
We did win last year. Yeah, there was. I can't remember now because I had a couple of meetings last year. There was one where I had a terrible start and a great finish. And there was one where I had a great start and a terrible finish.
Well, we need the great start because we're not going to be able to get on. We need the great start because it will be a great start and a terrible end because of the way.
I've got a feeling Cheltenham was I think we had my best bit of the meeting was on day one and it won, and then I think we had a kind of bad patch in the middle and then we finished really well. So I've got one bet for you tomorrow. Anyway, I'm sure lots of people watching are thinking, "Oh God, I just want him to tell me a horse to bet." So I'm going to give you one bet. It's in the 240 race on Tuesday at Cheltenham. The race is called the Ultima Chase, and the horse is called Katati Dori. It's a bit of an unusual name, really. It's Katate, and then Dori, Dori. It's about 8-1, and I'm backing it each way. I mean, if you want to know all the reasons, I will be writing a long essay about that race. But trust me, it'll be one of the biggest bets I have of the whole week. And it's a nice price. So there you go.
Thank you very much for that extra tip. We didn't ask for it. It was given an extra tip by Neil there. I can guarantee you though, if it's Neil's having a big each way bet on it, around 8-1, I'm guessing that might be the favourite that's got a -130 or an even money.
No, it's not like that. No, it's the favourite's like, I don't know, maybe +500 in that race.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that's
it's a big better. Kind of it's a 20 odd runner field, or it's quite a lot of runners in it.
Yeah, make sure you like this show. Give us a subscribe as well. Like I say, if horse racing isn't your thing, it's something we had to talk about here because it's such a big week for Neil in terms of Cheltenham Festival over here. Ends Friday. We're back to the normality of next week of telling some funny stories. There's a lot of people asking me some stories about you, Neil. So someone's asking about the wager that you put on for your girlfriend. You got Anne to go to the betting shop to bet a bet on the.
That was a Grand National
one.
I thought we'd save that until we talked about the Grand National.
We'll save that for Grand National in a couple of weeks' time. I also want to get the story that you told me about when you were at Ascot sitting next to a guy you didn't recognise. You were talking about farming, but I want to save that as well. I think that's a very, very good story. But we're going to get some funny stories along the way. That's it for the week. Please hit that subscribe button. Do join us here on the Dojo. Give us a like. Good luck. I said, if you're going to have a bet on your Cheltenham, you're going to bet on March Madness. Whatever you're betting this week, make sure you gamble responsibly, and hopefully we can all cash some tickets together. Thanks very much for your time, mate. I appreciate it. I know you've got a busy weekend. Good luck for Cheltenham, Neil, and hopefully we have a good week. We'll be back again next week looking at all the biggest sporting action here on the Betting Weekly Dojo, some strategies, some trends, and also some little bit of a laughs along the way as well. Take care. Enjoy your week.